I think we're going to continue to see opportunistic M&A.
Hello from the Nasdaq MarketSite. I'm Jarrett Banks, editor-at-large of CorpGov. Joining me today is Francisco Morales, a partner of M&A and private equity at Vinson Elkins. Francisco, welcome to the program.
Jarrett, thank you for having me.
Let's get right into it. What's your outlook for the likelihood of more unsolicited and hostile takeover bids this year?
You know, it's interesting. Look at the market, right? There's so much uncertainty being driven by the tariffs, the fact that the interest rates are not going down to a level that we expected it, and we still have inflation that's being reluctantly higher than I think everyone would expect. So in that market with uncertainty, M&A generally is going to continue to not do well. However, I do think there's a lot of opportunity for highly opportunistic M&A to occur, particularly in hotter sectors such as technology, particularly driven by AI or life sciences.
Now, breakup and M&A has been one of the consistent themes. Should companies engage proactively right now?
So yeah, breakup and M&A from activist campaigns has been consistent. It's kind of interesting because according to the latest study by Barclays, they were analyzing Q1 numbers, and they were saying that there has actually been a drop in M&A as a main theme for activist campaigns. It used to be year on year in the 40s, and now it's in the 20s. Even then, though, the prevalent type of campaign is one instigating a breakup and divestiture. Two really interesting cases that occurred this quarter was Elliott Management seeking the divestiture of BP's renewable projects, and you also had Starboard seeking the divestiture of Becton Dickinson's life sciences projects. You know, I've done a bunch of divestitures in my career. Among them, I did Danaher's acquisition of GE Biopharma. I did Bristol Myers' disposition of its Opsa consumer business in France, and most recently, I did NFE's divestiture of its Jamaica LNG assets. And I can tell you, breakout is something that takes a long time and it requires a lot of consideration. So I do think that activists are going to push for it, but it's just like a slow process, and it doesn't happen overnight.
All right, great. Now, what are you telling clients to prepare for an unsolicited takeover bid?
From the legal perspective, what I tell them is like, look, you need to make sure that you have a shelf right plan. That is to say that you have a poison pill not adopted, but ready for adoption. And that means both, like you have to work with your lawyers in order to update it and make sure that you have like the latest and greatest, but more importantly, that your board members actually understand what it is that you're doing and how it gets implemented. So what I tell my companies is like, on a regular basis, it doesn't need to be every quarter, but maybe once a year, or maybe every once 2 years, we need to give a refresher about the poison pill to the board, particularly if we have new board members. Another aspect that I tell to my companies is like, let's look at your bylaws and make sure that the bylaws are your like greatest and latest. And finally, I think that I hope all my companies have like a good stock watch program. But what I am encouraging now is to understand what are the technologies that the stock watch program are using and make sure that they're leveraging like AI properly and they understand how it is that they're leveraging AI.
All right, what are some of the pitfalls for a company dealing with an unsolicited bid, and how do they get around them?
I think the biggest pitfall is just not being caught flat-footed, not having a plan as to who is the person that will take charge and what's going to be the dialogue that they will say. So how do you get around that? It's just preparation, and you need to have, again, like a periodic review in times of peace of when you get the unsolicited reach out. Is it going to be the chairperson that's going to be the main person of contact, or is it going to be the CEO that's going to lead the charge? And what is the messaging? That's one of the things that I encourage all boards to be cognizant about and really thoughtful. I think another pitfall is just poor record of the deliberation made by the board and poor time to review and think about the offer that was received, and sometimes even like just failure to respond to the person making the outreach. Those are areas that I always encourage my board to focus on.
Now, you talked a little bit about the messaging. How do you advise clients on their communication to stakeholders?
Yeah, I think the communications to stakeholders is just a year-long engagement. It's tried now, but everyone says engagement with your shareholders is no longer like the proxy season, et cetera. You just need to be 365 days on it. And the engagement just needs to be meaningful and strategic. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if you follow the SEC guidance in February, basically telling 13G investors that if they exert pressure, they might push them into 13D land. I think that might result in investors being more reluctant to engage with companies. And I think in that type of scenarios, the company should even be even more proactive of reaching out to such investors and trying to make sure that they're engaging in meaningful dialogue. The other aspect that I think companies need to be thinking through is making sure that the market, the street view of their like long-term strategic plan actually matches what they think their like long-term strategic plan is. And if it doesn't, then they need to start engaging with like legal, financial, and PR advisors in order to make a better job at it.
Okay. What are the telltale signs that a company is ripe for an unsolicited bid?
I think like if you keep missing your earnings guidance, if you keep having troubles with like, your CEO leadership, if you have an underperforming business line, that's definitely going to result in an M&A divestiture type of like target. And if you're in one of the hot sectors that are viewed now, the other one is like your capital allocation. If you're viewed as having too much cash or too much debt, those are all signs that someone's going to hit you sooner or later.
Okay, last question. Using your crystal ball, what do you see for the rest of the year?
I wish I could see the rest of the year. I think we're going to continue to see opportunistic M&A. There's just too much dry powder out there. I realize that like M&A thrives on certainty, but there will be pockets that will continue to be active, such as like earlier that I mentioned, Elliott and BP, for example. Something interesting might come out of all of that engagement.
All right, great. We'll leave it there. This has been Francisco Morales, a partner of M&A and private equity at Vinson Elkins. I'm Jarrett Banks, signing off from the Nasdaq MarketSite.